Welcome to Soulful Kitchen Podcast. I'm Sun, the Bohemian Vegan. This Own Your Health series is all about the journey to intuitive healing and living in optimal health. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3, season 1 of Own Your Health. In this episode, I have a very special guest on the show, and he happens to be a good friend of mine. But more importantly, he's actually my vegan mentor. I met Harry Bolman several years ago. We both lived on the Gold Coast in Australia and were part of a kirtan group. We started a fun little vegan cooking show before YouTube got all serious, and not only did we have non-stop laughs while making the episodes, we also built up an audience that loved our craziness together. When I left Australia in 2015 to continue my animal work in India, Harry went on to host his own show, The Vegan Hour, which was hugely successful. Since 2016, vegan veteran Harry Bolman has interviewed hundreds of vegan identities, from vegan athletes to activists, vegan business owners to vegan health professionals. So I hope that you are inspired by his very compassionate decision to live vegan and save lives. This is Harry Bolman. He's from Vegan Life in Australia, and he happens to be not only a very good friend of mine, but also my vegan mentor.
You can sort of, elaborate and say the famous, incredibly good looking, very talented, always humorous, absolute hit with the ladies, Harry Bolman from Vegan Life. Dun, 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 dun.
Like, how many years has it been since we did our little video thing? Like we used to
6 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
And you've been traveling around the world.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
insane. Like, I just feel like it was yesterday. Like, our little, yeah. And when you're singing like that, it makes me think of,
all the crazy stuff I was doing. Yeah. It was only because of the drugs I was on.
So, but I also think we had good chemistry. Don't you think we had good chemistry?
Yes.
We did. Okay.
Just the right amount of nuttiness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone liked our treats and also our little videos. But every time I talk about that time, I always just have like the biggest smile on my face, like biggest smile on my face.
That is nice to have those memories, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And when I think about it, because I tell the story that I was only back in Australia for 4 months. Like, I came back in April and I left again in August.
God,
I think it was end of August or something. And I cannot believe that it was like only 4 months. And
I can't believe it.
I know.
Oh, it's not getting
smiling, always smiling.
That's good.
I'm actually house sitting at the moment. It looks like a Gothic castle, doesn't it? I just realized it's very weird, right?
Yeah.
And that's my chair.
Wow.
That's my chair.
Look at oh my God. Wow.
And of course, I've got like a spotlight shining right on there. And there's no other light. The lights don't work above me. So it's really bright on my face, unfortunately.
You need Gothic theme music, don't you?
I do. Maybe I'll do that for the podcast. Yeah. A little bit of history from my perspective with Harry is that 6 years ago, I knew Harry before, but I'd just come back from India, and he helped me to transition into being vegan, and I never looked back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also we had a little kind of, how would you describe that show? What was it? It was just kind of
it was recorded insanity.
Yes. Was it? Really?
Yeah, in the kitchen. It was us being creative with vegan dishes, which we recorded and put on the YouTube, as I like to call it. And it was just, we were bouncing off each other. I think there was a nice dichotomy of things going on there. So it was really, really cool. But it was fun times, and it was the beginning of your your vegan awakening and
It
vegan
was.
journey.
It was.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what have you been doing since the last 6 years?
Well, let's see. I've been abducted by aliens about 6 times now. The mother ship keeps coming over the top, and it's just
Season's
I'm
gonna
getting
be a funny
sick of the
season.
probing. I can't even walk straight anymore. No, but seriously, oh, I don't know what audience this is going out to, but oh my god, I feel sorry for you watching, but no, but seriously, I've on the vegan scene.
Yeah.
I've continued to be quite busy on the vegan scene. In fact, that was the year after you and I were doing the kitchen, the recipes in the kitchen. That was I started doing live streams, and
Yep.
that became the big thing. So for 4 years, I did the Vegan Hour, and that was live streaming on location in a studio with a different guest each week, each Tuesday night, and that was fantastic. Just sort of having that with the live stream, it's almost like having the audience there. So people were able to ask questions in real time.
Yeah.
And it was so, just for me personally, it was so enlightening. It just made me feel great to be able to talk to different vegans from different walks of life that had different experiences. And I just felt so invigorated, I guess is the adjective I'm searching for by the end of it, because I'm just thinking I was so blessed to be able to have some of these people from vegan bodybuilders to vegan business owners to vegan naturopaths, vegan doctors,
Yeah.
all different walks of life. The common thing being these are people that were vegan,
Yeah.
and in just about every case, I think probably every case, these are people that weren't born vegan. With one exception that I think of, a lady from Sydney, Trish, who is the longest living vegan that I know of, and probably would be one of the longest in the world. She was vegan from birth, and she's I think 64 now, so 64 years vegan, which is amazing.
Wow. So
Now,
how many years is it for you though now? Because I've lost.
it's 41 years now. I went vegan in 1980 when I was 16. So,
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
157 now. So
But yeah, so when I remember the vegan hour because it was very
mm.
popular. You had some amazing guests.
I felt privileged to have some really great guests come on. I had James Aspey, who is big on the vegan scene. He was on 3 times, and he always got a huge response and reaction, and lots of always a lot of a big female following. Joey Carbstrong, who was not particularly well known at that time, but has since gone on to become really big in the UK and on the world scene. And Joey was also really just a nice, humble, quietly spoken guy who's sort of really grown in his presence and really done some amazing activism. So I felt that was just wonderful to have to talk to him too,
Yeah, nice.
and so that sort of thing was very, very empowering, inspiring, and we had sponsors that were helping to sponsor the show, and I just kept working on the technology to try and make the quality better. And
Like
yeah, I'm
nights,
proud of. Hey,
not like tonight with
no,
me.
not like, but I'm proud of what we achieved,
Yeah.
and I retired that show at the end of 2019. Actually, yes,
Okay.
it was 2016, 17, 18, 19 went for 4 years, and at the beginning of last year, I started a new series. My Vegan Life, or This Vegan Life. Here, I can't even remember the name of the series I started last year.
Yeah.
I did 6 episodes of that, and that wasn't done from a studio. That was actually done similar to how we're doing this. And then after 6 episodes of that, basically because of things that were happening in my personal life and the changes and the not having the time to sort of put into it,
Yeah.
I then retired that. But these days, fitting in with my regular activity of bicycle riding, I do regular bicycle live streams on when I'm riding. I don't interview guests, but I'll just pick a different topic, and it may be a vegan topic, it may be a spiritual topic, which is
Yeah.
something that's very close to home for you and I.
Yeah.
Spiritual topics. So because suddenly you've got an audience,
Yeah, exactly. Well,
and
maybe
so
not. maybe, maybe for you because you've got a good following. But but anyway, it's good
yeah,
growth.
but that sort of it changes if you have an audience. It changes how you act and react and how you think. And yeah, for me personally, I find it's it's a complete different thing when you feel like you've got an audience and it's happening in real time, rather than if it's just something that you're recording that can be edited later or something.
Yeah, right. Which
Yeah.
actually is probably I'm very good at editing. I'll just put it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought of something. Okay, so you're doing a live stream, you're riding a bike, and
Mm-hmm.
I know your bikes, like I know
Mm-hmm.
that they're the electric ones. So you're
Yep,
riding that.
e-bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you answer the questions when you're riding the bike doing a live stream?
The phone is mounted on a very high quality mount above the handlebars. It allows
Okay.
me to see comments coming in,
Yeah.
and also to get good video and audio. And if anybody watching this wants to see how good it is, you'll just have a look at any of the ones I've done on my YouTube channel, and you'll see that I use a lapel mic, so there's no wind noise.
Yeah,
It's
right.
a good quality recordings, and good quality video. I'm using a good quality phone to do it. So yeah, it's the experience is
It's
almost as good as being in the studio, which is Harry Bolman's Vegan Life. You'll have to
very
watch it on
good.
there. Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
I'll leave the link for your YouTube channel in the
thank you.
show notes. But like, do you remember when there might have been, like, for you personally, because as a mentor, you've
Mm,
obviously helped many people. I mean, I know that you have
mm,
quite a large social media following, actually.
mm,
So
mm. That's
I'm
only
sure.
because people are just curious to see what nutty things I do next. I think I don't, but yes, no, it's
Fair enough.
I feel it's a good form of activism. So I'm very active on social media. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
which
yeah,
is good.
sorry.
I think I
Mm.
celebrated with you. It must have been 35 years then.
You did an interview with me. Might have been 36. It might have been 35. I'm not
I
sure.
feel like it was a
Yes.
big
Yeah.
one. I feel like it was a big one, like a big defining moment. Like, so what
Well,
made you change when you became
mm,
vegan?
it's a good question, and it's the most important thing I've done in my life, the biggest thing I've done in my life that's had the best long-term effect. And interestingly, originally it was for selfish reasons, because when I was 16 and I was a teenager with really bad acne, and I'd had it for a few years, and the doctors were saying it was not related to diet at all, which I found interesting. I lost faith in doctors at that point, and I was very, 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 very fortunate to come across a book called The Mucusless Diet, which had been written in 1922 or 27 or something by a German professor, who still to this day you can buy the book. You can get on social media and follow him, Professor Arnold Ehret. I mean, he's not alive, but you can
Yeah,
follow his followers.
yeah,
But the book was profound. I was a 16-year-old acne-ridden kid that read this book, that basically it had a message of very, very, very healthy living. And it meant that you were going on to a whole food, raw vegan diet, that you were going out in the sun every day, that you were fasting, that you were going into nature. It encompassed the whole. It was like spiritual in its approach, and it,
yeah,
it really was an awakening for me. So
yeah.
I read this book, and I read it in one go. It's not a big. It's not a. In fact, I think it's on the bookshelf behind me there. A newer copy of it. I read it in one go on a Friday night, and I'm like, it became my Bible overnight. I'm like, okay, that's it. Tomorrow I'm going raw vegan, and so overnight I was living with the parents, and overnight I went back to eating very simple meals, no processed food, no breakfasts, just 2 meals a day, minimal mixture of ingredients in them. By the end of that weekend, the acne was really starting to clear, and by the end of the next week it had
Wow.
all gone. And I was like, I don't need any further proof.
Yeah,
This has sealed it for life, that what I'm putting into my body is having a massive effect. It's the fuel. The quality of the fuel is having a massive effect on my health. I was, I was so skinny. I was there's an embarrassing photo of me shirtless at about 17 or 18, and it's just ribs. And because I was, for the first maybe 2 or 3 years, I was so strict, really, really strict. I had this willpower to be able to stay on this diet and experience all the benefits also of connecting with nature and meditating and breathing fresh air, and really sort of, it opened my whole world. So it was really, really amazing. so I started becoming vegan for selfish reasons, and this is common with a lot of vegans that I've interviewed over the years, where they'll say, it was because of health reasons, in the first place. And then what is interesting in hindsight, looking back, is that I already was an animal lover and didn't sort of understand that I was, and so was my father too, even though he was still a meat eater at that time. We have that instinct in most of us to care for certain animals, and I had that as well. And then so the ethics became, I started to understand more about not just looking after the family pets, as they're called, and not just loving them, and not just being heartbroken when they've passed away, but all animals, starting to understand the rights of all animals to live and to love, and to want to be able to have the lives that we want to be able to have the peace and the connection, and it became clearer in time that this is very, very important, and we should be doing our best to live these compassionate lives. And so spirituality came into it for me along the journey, probably 10 years later, probably. And it's all started to sort of connect together even more as I started following a defined spiritual path and understood the meaning of the word ahimsa, which is compassion in thought, word, and action. And it all sort of started to come together. It's just become more and more cemented over time.
Yeah.
And it's also so many aspects of the journey of awareness. I call vegans ambassadors of compassion, because we are doing our best to, on one level, to live a cruelty-free life, and at the same time, we're doing our best to be ambassadors, exempling that cruelty-free life to other people. And I do a lot of exempling that through social media.
Yeah.
And through my vegan life group. It's just a constantly expanding thing. And in the 41 years I've been vegan, the changes that I've seen, I've gone from being the only vegan in the village, so to speak, 41 years ago, to like amazing things happening. Like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, my parents, I'd been hanging around them for so long, sort of thing, and they finally got sick of it and just decided to do it.
So,
But
so that's kind of like an interesting thing, because I one thing that I'm curious about is to know
mm,
what it, like, even for me, like when I left Australia, I remember you saying there were three vegan restaurants when I left, and then after a year and a half or 2 years, there was something like 20
mm,
something vegan
yep,
restaurants around.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I couldn't believe how much, since I've become vegan, I felt a little bit like, oh, I'm like the pariah in the
yes,
corner, to now
yes.
it's like this huge mainstream thing that's happening. But what was it like 41 years ago at 16 years old?
The biggest difference is in shopping. I would do almost all my shopping at the local health food store 41 years
Yeah,
ago. I actually, ironically, would do my fruit and veg shopping in the supermarket. The difference is that's reversed now, in that I almost never go to the
yeah,
health food store, because the products that were considered sort of outside products are now mainstream products in supermarkets. So the products that you could only get in health food stores, like a vegan cheese or a vegan yogurt or something like that,
yeah.
well, there's multiple versions of them by different companies in all the different supermarkets. And then you go into the what used to be the milk aisle, it feels like it's the plant milk aisle. It's like,
It's crazy,
wow.
isn't it?
And
Yeah.
it is so fantastic. There's all the different oat milks and the rice milks and the soy milks, and the what's the one that most people haven't heard of is pea milk. Pea
Oh,
milk.
yeah.
And
I've been starting to use pea protein to make
yeah,
gluten-free meats and stuff that are vegan as well. Yeah.
yeah. So that is a sign of change in the world and change in the markets. And the marketplace only changed because so many more vegans came on the scene.
Yeah.
And so there's so much more buying power, and companies have gone, oh, wow, we better get in on this, because there's actually, they're reading all the statistics and that of what's selling, and that they're getting all the data every month and whatever from the supermarkets, and they're like, we've got to get in on this, because this has become a big market. Vegan food has become a big
Yeah.
market, and massive companies worldwide floating on the stock exchange, and just building up huge amounts of revenue, because the world has become more compassionate in the 41 years that I've been vegan. So
Yeah. Right.
that's just, brings a smile to your face, and you just think, this is, wow, with this, there may be some hope for humanity's stupidity after all.
I think like that too.
As it turns out, the Gold Coast, where I live, has actually had a vegan restaurant here for 24 years, and I actually didn't know they'd been here that long. I only
Wow.
Yeah, it's called Tian Ran, and they were the Gold Coast's first vegan restaurant. And I had no idea until, believe it or not, I think it was last year I was talking to the owner, and the owner said, "No, we actually have been here 24 years." And I was like, "Well, I didn't know you were even here till like 10, 15 years ago." I was like, "Amazing!" So that they were pioneers. Wow,
Yeah, wow. That's
they were
crazy. So do you
pioneers.
still
Yeah.
do the luncheons where you choose a
Yeah.
vegan restaurant and do that with
Yeah,
the group?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
we do. I do a different restaurant each month, and alternate between a lunch and a dinner. We recently had we did something a little bit different. We did a brunch at the Gold Coast's first fully vegan grocery store in
Oh,
Southport.
cool.
Yeah, and so we did a brunch there, and they got a little cafe at the back which has about 6 seats. 21 of us crammed in
Oh my
there.
gosh.
He was like, forget the fact that you've only got 6 seats. I even said to people, bring your own seats. And they did. And 21 of us crammed in there. And
Wow.
most of the people that came along, it was an introduction. They didn't know that this vegan, it's called Blue Morpho grocery store, vegan
Uh-huh.
grocery store. They didn't know that it existed. It had only been open a couple of months. It was an introduction for some vegans to go to this place and see all the products that they sell, and to have some food in the cafe, food and drink, and it's just, that's a satisfying sort of feeling, knowing that, I'm helping the business and helping create the awareness. And of course, why wouldn't
Absolutely.
I? Because I want to see
Yeah.
these fully vegan places become successful.
I remember you actually having trouble sometimes finding a place that was a vegan
At
restaurant. Yeah, at
at
the
that
time.
at that time, yes, you came along to an event, a lunch we did at Kuan Yin in Southport, and it was
Yes.
the last time we went to a place that wasn't fully vegan.
So I guess like before I wanted to ask you a question because like as I said you are to me like very strongly involved as a vegan and I think
Mm,
that happens differently for everyone and I think sometimes people can be a little bit aggressive in the way like you're not out there doing protests
mm,
or you're not
mm,
doing this and
mm.
you're not doing that is it sometimes I feel like oh I'm not doing enough or whatever so because other people are doing so much but being vegan like I guess what does it mean for you and what does it like how do you sort of feel about other vegans I guess it's not a question that I really put that to, yeah
Well, no, that's good. It's almost like a couple. I just want to
yeah
answer that question in a minute, but I want to pick up on something that occurred to me when you were saying, you might feel that you're not doing enough or whatever.
yeah
I believe that we should all just work with our strengths, and we have different talents, and not everybody's comfortable. So I've done these Cuba truths where you stand there and you're in the public way, and you're showing graphic scenes on TVs of how animals
yeah
are being used and abused, and it's quite confrontational for the public, understandably. It takes a certain sort of courage, or a certain sort of mindset, sometimes, to do that, to not be affected by the reaction of the public,
yeah
basically, because the public can be quite in your face, and especially if it's somebody going past that's got kids, and they're like, I don't want my kids seeing that. The reality of what they're supporting can be very confrontational. So, there are people that get burnt out. That want to do that. They're like, yes, we want to get to every week, but it becomes quite overwhelming. It's like, okay, that's fine. If you're getting burnt out, that's a sign that it's not really the thing that empowers you to keep supporting the animals. So, work with your talents. Your talents might be behind the scenes, creating things behind the scenes that is not confrontational. That's fine. There's a lot of, I find it difficult to be in a confrontational situation personally,
yeah
so I don't put myself in there. Yeah, so that's what works for me. Now the second part was, you were asking, what does vegan mean to you, right?
yeah
Yeah. And quite simply, it's two words: animal rights.
Yep.
And that's what veganism boils down to for anyone.
Yep.
It's not about us. It's about the animals. It's about our duty to do the right thing for the animals, and by extension of that, it's actually our duty to do the right thing for all living beings. Veganism is almost like a starting point. So we're looking after the animals. We're doing everything that we know to do to end their suffering, and then by extension, also we should be good, compassionate humans treating other humans, not just animals, well, but treating other humans well. We should be compassionate. We should be following the principles of ahimsa and using that compassion in all areas. And it should be also, nature. We should be treating the environment compassionately. And unfortunately, mankind has a horrendous history of abusing everything that moves and lives, for selfish gain. It's very, very sad, and it can be very overwhelming when you start to get into the depths of it, and especially when you see the cruelty involved with animals, whether it's in person or on a screen. And you have to basically come back to the understanding of veganism is all about animal rights, and keep that in your mind. It's not about us. It's about their right to live, to love, to live free of pain and suffering, to not be commodified, to not be used and abused. And just think of the animals that are like pigs and cows and sheep, and that all the animals that are so industrialized. Think of them and apply the same love that you have for your dog or your cat, and how you would spend your time and your money and whatever to make sure it was happy and healthy, and then extend that to all living beings, and then extend that to other people, and then extend it to the environment as well. If we could all do that, we wouldn't be dealing with a climate crisis at the moment.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be dealing with all the different scary things that are happening when we start to scratch under the surface of the life we live, and see how cruel we can be.
It's interesting because the things you kept saying were the things that I've changed since being vegan. I became so much more aware. It was like I was living with like this. I'm not talking
Yep.
tunnel vision. I'm talking like this. And all
That's
of a
right.
sudden, like my whole world just opened up, and I was like, oh, you know.
It's sad, isn't it, that from the earliest age we're all indoctrinated into a lie that says this is how to live life. This is how you'll be happy. This is how our forefathers did it. This is how our family has done it.
Yeah.
And it's sold to us as being this. We want to be happy, and this is how we do it. We're happy if we eat animals. We're happy if we do all the crazy things that are actually destroying our health, and destroying the planet, and destroying the lives of other living beings. So that awakening, you go vegan and you start opening up to it, and then it brings automatically the things that are in your heart that you know to be right. They come up to the surface.
All of a sudden everything opened within me,
Yep.
and realizing that what I'd been putting on my plate started to make me realize what was going on in the world. But I guess it did
Mm.
start more with my own health, and then it started to just spread out. Like I just
Yep.
started seeing things so much more
Yeah.
differently to how I had in the past. And if you can say that someone changes, that's what I think change is. Like I
Mm.
think, people say, oh, you can't change as a person, but I'm like, but yeah, it's like growing, isn't it? It's like being
It's a
aware.
vibrational, it's an energetic vibrational
Yes.
shift, and it's something that's very common in people that I've interviewed over the years, where they've said they felt a lightness.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'd say, well, what changes did you notice? And without being prompted, they'd say, I felt a lightness. I felt
Yeah,
better about things, better about myself, better about the way I was, interacting with other
yeah,
people and animals and that. And of course you did, because our natural state is one of compassion. And there's that old saying of, give a baby a carrot and a carrot and a rabbit, which
yeah.
one will it play with and which one will it eat, sort of thing. It's not going to eat the rabbit and play with the carrot, because compassion is something we're born with. And the
Yeah,
saddest thing when I dwell upon it is to think about the fact that parents basically, sort of beat that out of their kids. Eat all that on your plate, or you can't leave the table, sort of thing.
yeah,
Because and you know I try not to go too hard on the parents, because I realize they're indoctrinated by their parents when they were
Exactly.
kids,
Exactly.
and they believe the lie. They think that's where you get your protein and your
Yeah.
calcium, and this is all the doctors I've been following, which have been non-vegan, are all saying the same thing, and all the advertisements said the same thing, and all their forefathers said the same thing. But hey, we
Yeah.
came from we came from the Garden of Vegan,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
and
It's interesting, speaking of children, I think even for me, I was already vegan, but when I lived in Israel for that year,
mm,
I'd already met a lot of Israelis in India, and
mhm,
I was so surprised. If I could say the most amount of people that I've met in my lifetime from a country that are vegan, it's Israel. And actually, when I looked into
wow,
it, Israel
yeah,
has the highest vegan
highest,
population per capita or
yes,
whatever, right?
yes, it
But
does, yes.
what I loved was that I met so many families, and these children, you could see it in their eyes were brighter. They were so much
Mhm.
more inquisitive. They were really careful and gentle with the animals.
That's the way the world should be, isn't it?
Exactly.
There should be
Exactly.
that awareness, that there should be the support from the parents going, of course you wouldn't be eating an animal.
Exactly.
That would be hurting another living being. That
Yeah.
should just be natural.
How it
And there was
is.
a
Yeah.
time, in the Garden of Eden, apparently, when it was when it was like that, and we've strayed a long way from that, and we've
Yeah.
we've suffered the consequences.
Yeah.
That's the wake up call that we've been getting in the last couple of years, especially
Yeah.
climatically, and also dare we say, with the virus and things like zoonotic diseases. Basically,
Yeah.
we're getting this wake up call. It's like, hey, these things aren't coincidental. They happen for a reason. They're not just
Yeah.
accidental or whatever. They happen for a reason, and they're happening because keep mistreating Mother Earth, and Mother Earth gets to the point where it goes, well, I can't handle this anymore,
Yeah.
and there's a rebellion happening.
Yeah.
We keep mistreating animals, and it gets to the point where it's like, well, this can't be allowed to go on anymore, and so you're going to suffer the consequences. So what we sow, as we sow, so shall we reap. And
Yeah.
what we have sown is a society that thinks it's all right to use and abuse and commodify animals.
Yeah.
And so, what do we get back from it? We get heart disease, cancers, diabetes. The list just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And what are we getting now? We're getting zoonotic diseases that come from mistreating animals,
Yeah.
that are having a huge effect on the world. And are we learning from it? Well, most days I look at the commentary and social media, and I go, no, I don't think we are actually.
I find you a very positive person, the epitome of being vegan. But I also know that sometimes social media has caused, some problems there, because people tend to make comments that they either have no experience or knowledge about,
Yeah.
or are just plain rude, as I call them, keyboard warriors. So what's your probably like a highlight, or what's been something that's been great for you with social media, because obviously it does open
Mm,
up the
yeah.
advocacy, but
Yeah.
what have been like your highs and lows, I guess, with that? Highlights
The
and lows.
highlights are seeing so many people taking a professional business risk to open fully vegan restaurants or businesses, um, in a world that is still, we are still so much in the minority. Seeing people do that is a highlight for me personally, because I really honor what they're doing, and I really want to support them. I want them to succeed, and they create the new normal. So I love that. That's
Yeah.
that's something that really excites me. And when I read something of a new vegan business or whatever opening, I'm just like, damn, this is so good, because 41 years ago there was no hope of
Yeah,
of that
right.
happening. And then also, having as mentioned previously, having the success with the vegan hour, and creating that awareness, and getting feedback from people of how
Yeah.
it was helping them, answering their questions, influencing them, influencing others. Personally satisfying is people coming up and saying, like with yourself, they said, I went vegan, because of you. And I'm like, oh, that's, well, actually, I'm like, really, you should have done it for the animals. but, but it means that, I've had some effect. So through all the really bad jokes, I've had a positive effect there. And also the success with Vegan Life, we've got 1,260 something members, giving that opportunity for people to come along and have a safe space. Because when I started it in 2014, it was like a safe space, because there wasn't the other vegan events happening. There weren't vegan markets. There weren't vegan festivals of any regularity. Since then, I mean, for the last 5 years, Brisbane has had Brisbane vegan markets running. For the last year, we've had Gold Coast vegan markets running every month. Different parts of Australia has a similar thing. There are the vegan festivals. These things are just so like help remove some of the doubt that I've had in some of the lonelier days, when,
Yeah, right.
especially going back in the past, when I did feel like I was the only vegan in the village, and when it was even my so-called friends would like to mock my choice of compassionate lifestyle.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to stick to what you know is the right thing to do, but you can live with yourself and you can go to sleep at night knowing you've done the right thing better than if you sell yourself out just to keep other people happy, just to get their approval. And I
Yeah.
had this discussion with someone recently, and they said, oh yeah, but it can be really hard. I said, yeah, but worse still is not sticking to your principles just because you need somebody to approve of you. I would
Yeah.
rather be the loner, the outsider, and know that I'm doing the right thing. And that's, a lot of my life has been like that. Sticking out the hard yards meant that, people finally came around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did a video when I started my new channel, because I started
Mm.
a new YouTube channel. That's a funny story as to why, but anyway, we won't go into it.
I've,
But yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, I've seen a couple of them, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
one that I did a blog online, and it was actually like, I know that like dating is not something I do anymore, because clearly it's hard living in another country. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like it's like just the things you don't realize, that you're taking things that you
Mm,
do need to understand, that it is a commitment, and that it's a
mm,
strong commitment for the animals as well. But there are going to be changes on a positive level, but there's also some things that you have to, I wouldn't say negative, but think
mm.
of them a different way, like think of it in a different light. Yeah.
It's especially harder for a female vegan, because there's a lot less of us really incredibly good-looking vegan males around, and with amazing humor and such strong intellect. But
Oh,
but apart
totally,
from,
totally. Yeah.
I don't have tickets on myself, but that's why, again, going back to something like my Vegan Life social group, that's a nice little outlet for people to come along without feeling the pressure of, because dating is very pressure thing. It's like,
Yeah.
anyway, let's not
Yeah.
even go there to the whole scene of, trying to find somebody to go out with and going out with them, and all the pressures and the doubts and everything involved. Having a vegan social group is like, oh, I get to go along and meet other vegans, and maybe I'll meet someone there. And I think I'm thinking of a guy that came along, I think once, and there was a girl there, and they've been together ever since. And I'm like, how the hell did you do that? It's just like,
I guess, do you think there's anything like the low side of it? Do you think there is
um,
anything like with people's public
it
opinions and, social
it's
media?
definitely the for me, it's going back to, you have to remind yourself why you're vegan. You're doing it for the animals, because when people come up, especially people that you've known for years, that maybe you've worked with for years, and out of the blue they just come up and mock you about something, or they'll say, oh, where do you get your protein or something. It's like,
Yeah.
seriously, you've known me for 15 years and you're
Yeah.
still asking me questions like that. But I will balance that with saying, the good positive side of that is that people that I have worked with, some of the people I've worked with for a long time that are non-vegan, I'm really surprised that some of them come up and say things like, "Oh yeah, have you seen that McDonald's is doing a new vegan?" But or somebody, and I'm just going, "Oh, this is interesting. It's on your radar, and you're not even vegan." And they're
Yeah,
going, "Oh yeah,
right.
we're actually going to check it out." And it's like, interesting, interesting, and one other thing that came to mind there was that the vegan hour, the live stream that I used to do, the name, the vegan hour, came from a meat eater.
Oh, really?
A
Oh, that's
meat eater friend of
hilarious.
mine that I work
Wow.
with. And after I'd done the first episode, which was called Ask Harry, and I told him about the first episode was no guest, it was just me,
Yeah.
asking myself questions. So that's the best conversation I had.
Yeah,
But
I've done 2 episodes like that.
yeah, yeah, I've listened to the first one.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, I listened to it yesterday actually, and yeah, and we were talking about it, and I was telling him about it, and he came up with the vegan hour name just like that, and I
Yeah,
just went,
sounds
oh
good.
yeah, okay, and I'm like, and he's still not vegan, but he came up with the name. So that, these things are the inspiration I look for to help me when I still, get down about the way people are treating animals, or I'm out walking and I smell somebody cooked corpse coming from somebody's house
Yeah, right.
or something like that, and I, because unfortunately I do still open social media and there is a video of animal cruelty in my face, and I'm just going, oh, and I out loud I will swear. I will
Yeah,
just like, I won't swear here, but
yeah.
I just think, yeah, aren't we past this yet? You
Well,
know,
that's the thing, and that's probably the like a question I think is something that you would be very good at answering, and that is like, we have come so far. Like this whole
mm,
discussion today is
mm,
about your 41 years of being vegan and what
mm,
you've seen. But I mean, obviously from what you've said as well, it's changing. Like it's changing the
mm.
world. You would agree
Yes,
with that? Yep.
yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yep. And what about the future? Like, do you feel that this is like, where do you see it progressing to? Like, what's your
Well,
personal feelings about it, and where do you actually like, if you took an analytical approach to what you see about the future, what do you think is going to
Well, it's not
happen?
changing fast enough for every, second of every day of the, hundreds of thousands of animals that are losing their lives,
Yeah.
and there was a thing probably a decade ago where the slogan that used to say vegan world by 2020. Well, obviously,
Wow.
yeah, and unfortunately that didn't happen, but the awareness has increased. The there's a sort of a spiritual understanding that as time goes by, um, the polarities of darkness and light both become stronger.
Right.
So it's interesting in that the darkness becomes darker, the elements of darkness, but the light becomes a lot more light and more compassion in that there. And
Yeah.
so there's always that battle between the good and the evil, and there's this understanding that that the dark side becomes more intense, and we do see some pretty terrible things happening that I wouldn't mention, but at the same time I see I'm so inspired by some of the acts of humanity to even humanity towards humanity,
Yeah.
as well as humanity towards animals, and that
Yeah.
some of the inspirational acts that I just think, wow, this gives me hope.
In COVID, like this is
Mm,
something that, I mean, we were all, well, I was in India. It was a strange thing, but I mean, without going into the whole thing, the whole
mm,
world was in lockdown. And I
mm,
mentioned this to you before when we had all the
mm,
technical issues, is that
mm,
I feel like for one glimpse of a moment that every single person was affected by the same thing. And now it wasn't a very positive thing, but it
no,
was like we,
no,
without us even knowing, we actually, like the whole of the planet was
yes,
affected by this, like
yes,
children, adults,
yes,
nationalities, different cultures, different languages, different beliefs.
yeah.
We all had, and every step that we take forward from that, we're always going to have that for every, like
we
throughout the
all
rest of our lives. Yeah.
we all sacrificed together, we all pulled
Yeah,
together.
exactly.
And the
Exactly.
last time that I remember that happened in to that level was
Yeah.
World War II. The history
Yeah.
of World
Right.
War II and World War One was that people came together with a common goal of supporting their country at that time. It
Yeah.
might have been countries against country, but they came together with a common goal. And an interesting thing happened, which goes against what I thought would have happened in the wars. Suicide rates dropped.
Yeah. Right.
Now, I would have thought they would have gone up because of the horrendous situation of being in a war. But no, people pulled together. They had a common thing to fight for. So they had something to live for. This is what initially happened with the pandemic, is that okay, it's going to be a few months, whatever we were being told. That's now sort of reached a point, obviously worldwide, where it's without getting too much into it, it's now, we're pretty over it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
as I was saying earlier, there's a karmic lesson here in that these things are not happening randomly. Everything's
Yeah.
perfectly planned, and these things are happening to teach a lesson for us to learn from. And my question is, are we learning from it? Are we going, okay, we need to stop mistreating animals? We've got the climate crisis telling us we need to do it because the major contributor to the climate crisis is animal agriculture.
Yeah.
We've got zoonotic diseases telling us that we need to do it. Are we learning from it? And unfortunately, I still have a lot of doubt in that area, because we've just recently had Climate Crisis Summit. They're trying to find ways to make it so that animal agriculture is more environmentally friendly.
Oh my
It's like,
goodness.
no, we don't want it to be environmental. We want you to stop killing animals because
Yeah.
that's why the environment is being destroyed. It just,
Yeah.
so,
I, mm.
bit of frustration there.
Yeah, I think actually it was you that, because you gave me a lot of films to watch, like back in the day when I was turning
Mm,
vegan. And I
mhm,
think one of the films that really stood out for me was Cowspiracy, and I think that's
mm.
the one that talks the most about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the vested
Yeah,
interests, that
yeah,
sort of thing, which it's a big thing for me, the vested interest, because my saying is ethics disappear when greed becomes God.
yeah.
And we live in a world where people are chasing this money God,
Well,
and
that's yeah,
the ethics disappear, and they disappear on all levels. They disappear in business, on every, that we mistreat each other because of money. We mistreat animals. We mistreat the planet because of money. And there's
yeah,
so many examples still occurring of that every day, of businesses that are just doing the wrong thing. They kill the businesses that are literally killing their customers, knowing that the products they're selling are lethal. And it's more important that they make money. It's just, it goes against logic. It goes against compassion. It goes against any heart of humanity to run a business in that way. But
yeah.
it's, unfortunately, there are people that are just so greedy, so mad for money, they'll do whatever it takes.
Exactly. It's so
Yeah.
true. The
Yes.
one thing that all we talked about in that whole time was getting the economy back on track, or that we couldn't go to work, or we couldn't, and it was like, you're exactly right. That's all coming from the money
Mm.
driving, nature that is built into us, unfortunately. Yeah.
And on that point, I remember thinking early on in the pandemic that I thought, oh wow, I was actually worrying about how the economy was going to crash. Little or what we've seen is that real estate has gone up. Is that
Yeah.
there have been so many businesses that have profited from this situation, that have become so busy that they actually can't handle their workloads at all. There was one good thing that came to mind also in relation to when a lot of industry shut down and a lot of transportation shut down, and we sort of stayed in our homes,
Yeah.
was animals returning to
Mm-hmm.
places that they'd never been
Yeah.
in a long, long time. And there were reports of dolphins swimming up canals was it in Italy or somewhere?
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
there was, I remember seeing videos of different wild animals coming back into the streets in certain cities and things like that, because there was hardly any traffic.
Yeah.
The ozone, the pollution in the ozone layer, and that was, we were recording a huge reduction in the pollution, because the air travel had reduced and industry had reduced. And it's like, well, there, almost straight away, we were seeing an example of the reversing of the damage we've been doing. It's like, wow, so if we did change the way we did things,
Yeah.
we can have an effect, in a positive way.
And
So,
also because I remember that the videos were just flooding in from around the world of,
mm.
people showing like what's the view from your window, what's,
Oh,
and
yes,
like, and also
yes,
showing these animals, doing the, like, returning to
yes.
nature. Again, we were united for that split second. Like, it feels like
Mm,
just a split second in time that we could have made such a huge leap forward, a
yeah.
huge leap forward. But at the same time, just, it's like we had that, it's like that little moment.
There was a scary comment I read. I found it a scary comment. Somebody that posted on social media, we just can't wait for things to go back to normal. And I thought,
Exactly. I'm so sick of that. Yeah.
yeah, you're just not getting it. You're just not getting where we can't go back to normal. We've
Yeah.
ruined normal,
Yeah, exactly.
And also, you're talking about countries that where the economy is not so good and people need to work. It's interesting that the worst country for meat production is also one of the not particularly good countries for living standards, and that is Brazil.
Yeah,
And
right.
they've got the biggest meat works company in the world that they actually own meat works here in Australia, different
Yeah, right.
places in Australia, and their standard of living can be pretty average.
Is
That's
there
good.
anything else that you'd like to share with any?
Well, I'd just finish up by saying that I hope anyone listening gets some inspiration, some ideas, helps to sort of move forward, and more. And now in 2021, it is more important now than ever to do what I sign off with on everything, which is to live vegan. To live vegan and save lives, because it's not just saving. I've been saying that for years. Live vegan and save lives, as in animals' lives, but it's saving the planet's life and it's saving our lives. So
Yeah.
we've got to live vegan and save lives. That's your foundation, and then everything will grow and blossom from there. So
Totally agree. Totally agree. But yeah, it's been really nice to see you as well,
it's been
and
great to chat with you.
chat with you as well. Really made me feel very good to hear your voice and see you again.
Same here, and thank you for the opportunity. I look forward
You're
to
welcome.
seeing how the finished product comes up.
Yeah, let's fingers crossed everything works, right?
Otherwise, we'll have to do it again.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Damn. Yeah.
All right.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Well,
Yes.
take care.
You too.
Namaste.
Namaste. It was such a pleasure to have my vegan mentor as my first guest. In the coming weeks, I'll also be interviewing Jill from One Love Vegan, who has some exciting news to share about the release of her new cookbook. Also, Violet from Positive Outlet will drop by and tell us about her vegan health journey. I'll also be spending more time discussing medical topics about and around candida and autoimmune disorders, and how candida is the root of so many health issues. I hope you swing by, and don't forget, if you want to be featured on my podcast, please let me know. You can find all my social media links plus more in the show notes. So I hope that you live your life in good health, eat lightly, breathe deeply, live moderately, cultivate cheerfulness, and maintain an interest in life. Namaste.